We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. It is Thursday. That means it's Old Soul Day. Welcome relief. I've got this cold going on, so when I don't have to talk as much, I shouldn't cough as much. I will cough, but it's easy to let Old Soul talk. Old Soul, welcome. Thanks for coming back. We
Hey,
always look forward to it. Everybody
thank
does.
you.
Before we get
I
into
always look
the
forward to it as well.
great, I appreciate that. Now, before we get into the political aspects of all that's going on, we always talk to you about your clients. For those people that don't know, Old Soul is an activist for all intents and purposes, and she is willing to help those folks that are in need of medical attention concerning abortions. A lot of times, women who live in states where it's not legal will come to Nevada. She opens up her doors and lets people stay with her. I know it sounds crazy, but that's fucking Old Soul. That's how she does business. So, and Old, you have a new client. Maybe you can tell us about her.
Yeah, I think I want to say she's a good kid at heart, but she comes from I call them high control groups when you talk about certain religious groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't call it a rebellious phase. I would call it as her having a lot of feelings and emotions and not knowing what to do with that. So the situation is she was touched inappropriately when she was younger by someone in the church. And then instead of calling the police, her parents went to the church elders. I don't
Yeah.
know how all this stuff worked, but this is my understanding. And the way that they dealt with it was they sent him away for a while, but then he came back to the church and she didn't want to be at the church with him anymore. But the parents was like, you got to forgive him, blah, 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 all that stuff. So then she just starts acting wild, kind of crazy. She's definitely a wild child. I will say that. But now she's 17. She's prego, well, pregnant. I've been talking like her since she's been here. And that's her situation. That's why she's here. But she's here with her mom. They don't get along. I don't know
Great.
what planet her mother lives on. And her dad is like an over the top Trump supporter. And so she's in like the middle of all of that. And she's just wild like that.
Well,
So she went for her first appointment. We went and they couldn't do anything because she had an infection that needed to clear up. It's going to leave that there. So as soon as she's done with those antibiotics, then we have to go back and then see if it's cleared up, and then she'll be able to get the help that she needs. She was acting out so badly that she was pulled out of public school and her mother is homeschooling her. And so it's kind of like it hurts. It's not really hurting her as much as it's hurting her mother because she had to quit her job. Now she's at home and money is tight because they went from two incomes to one income. And it's a lot. It's a lot.
so this is a young girl. She's 17 years old. She's not yet
Hmm.
18. She went through some sexual abuse in her church. Um,
Hmm.
do you suspect the acting out is by virtue of that experience and the fact that nothing was really done about it? I mean, this has got to be something that kind of messes with a young kid's head.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I had a conversation with her about her disrespectful level with her mother. And so pretty much like when I'm around and stuff, she's cool, she's calm, she is respectful, whatever, but the way that she talks to or treats her mother is crazy. So I had my mother come over and we were sitting down and we are having a conversation because I was just like, hey, my mother wasn't here for me either when I was like younger. So I understand feeling like your parents are not there. But my mother, she kind of cut me off and she was like, no, there's a difference. I was not present in the house. I was not allowing your abuse, like someone to abuse you, to be around you constantly. That's two different things. You know what I mean? And I was
Right.
like, well, yeah, that's true. Because she does feel like her parents are not there for her. But what she's struggling with is they're making her go to this church. She's around this guy. and there's like no punishment for him. He just left for like a couple months, and then he came right back to the church. And then everybody is like, okay, we need to get over it because God forgives us for our sins. So God forgave him. So now you have to forgive him. But she's not in a place where she wants to forgive him. Like she's in a place in her mind, like where she just angry, just how she's lashing out.
Well, your mom's right. Her parents do have some responsibility in it on all this. I mean, frankly, if I had a child
Hmm.
in a church or a school and found out that they would be abused, I would take them the fuck out of there. They took her out of school,
Yeah.
but they still send her to church.
Hmm.
That's ironic.
Yeah.
Now this pregnancy, this isn't by way of the abuser. This is somebody more age appropriate.
She doesn't even know who it is. I
Oh,
asked
wow.
her, I thought maybe she was saying that to like get back at her mother, you know? And then I was like, she was like, no, I don't know. She was like, I have it narrowed down to like four people. And then where it's coming from, when you get to the heart of it, in her church, there's kind of like this purity culture that goes on there. And so she just kind of felt like, well, I'm damaged goods anyway. Like I'm not good to anybody because of what happened to me. So I
Oh,
might as well just say screw it. So that's where her mind is. She just feels like her exact words is, I'm damaged goods at this point. I might as well just do whatever I want. Um, but I had to let her know that's not true. Nobody is going to hold you responsible for what someone else did to you. It doesn't make you like impure, it doesn't make you a bad person or anything like that. But at the same time, she's in a church that preaches that and teaches them every service, every function that they have, every youth event that they have. That's what they're telling them and that's what they're preaching to them. So she's hearing that over and over again and she's believing that. And so her self-esteem is just completely shot. And of course, guys is going to take advantage of a girl like that. If she's
right.
willing to do it, then they're going to do it.
Yeah,
So it's pretty
absolutely.
sad to see her like that,
What's ironic is
but that's what her mind was.
these church people would say, "Oh, this guy sexually abused a child, but we got to forgive him. God always forgives."
Hmm.
But I'll guarantee you this: if she has an abortion, they'll never forgive her. It's a different
Hmm.
deal when the young woman
Yeah.
has to take an action to best suit her health and her future. They'll never forgive that. They're all about forgiving the abusers and the people that are tied to their church, but they are judgmental as motherfuckers when it comes to that particular topic.
Yeah, that's so true. Like she feels like her mother is like ashamed because she doesn't want to say anything to anyone. She doesn't want to tell anyone. And that could be a part of it, but I also had to let her know, hey, the laws in your state, she can't go around telling people.
No,
I do think that when she was younger and that first happened, they should have gone to the police instead of going to the church elders.
absolutely.
But I guess that's just not how they do stuff. I can't wrap my mind around it, but that's just not how they do stuff there. You go to the church elders, you leave it up to them, you let them handle it, but allowing for him to come back into the church where there's other young girls is, to me, it's nonsensical. Or if you felt that deep in your faith, like they live in a Bible Belt, just go to another church. Why do you have to go to this one?
Yeah.
But and then it doesn't help her dad's a hardcore Trump supporter. Like she pulled up her dad's Facebook page and his IG page, and it really does look like these crazy Trump supporters. And my mother, when she was talking, she doesn't she's not politically correct like I am. And so she was kind of like going off on her mom a little bit. And she was like, her dad's in the effing cult. You're this religious nut job in a whole nother cult. And you got this child in the middle. No wonder she effed up. And I'm like, calm down. But
I
she was
think
just like, no, that's what
I
your
think
mom.
I think your mom and I could talk because I'm not as
Yeah.
politically correct as you are either.
Yeah, so that was it. But yeah, when I tell her something, she's pretty respectful about it. Like, she always like goes outside and smoke and she's doing what she's supposed to do with me. But when it comes to her mother, she's like completely different. And I'm surprised that this woman is like comfortable enough to go to sleep in her house with this girl by herself because she does not like her mother at all. Like I think she might like her, but I don't think she knows anything how to deal with her mom like that.
All right. Well,
She just is ready to like leave and move out and get away from her parents. And I was telling her like the only way you can do that is to like buckle down, go to school, get good grades. That way you can go to whatever state you want to and go to college and like rebuild there. But your behavior and the way that you're acting right now is going to do nothing but hinder you being able to move on and get away from this. So you kind of have to kind of like take a deep breath and do what you have to do for the next year. And then at that point, like figure out your next step. But this behavior right here is it's not going to help you get to where you need to be. It's not going to help at all.
well,
But she's just so angry.
where is this Trump humping dad in this whole mix? Does he know what's going on? Is it being hidden from him? Does he have any input of what's
No,
going
he
on?
knows. He knows. And surprised or not, he was just like, he told the mom, if you don't take her, I'm going to take her. So he knows what's going on. He doesn't have a problem with her getting her pregnancy terminated. I do think part of the reason that they don't have a problem with it is they don't want that shame from the church. Like, that's more important than the actual act itself of her having the abortion. So I think that what's making them push it and really want for her to do it or agreeing with her to do it is the fact that they don't want that shame coming down from the church. So they don't want anybody to know her behaviors and what the consequences of those behaviors are. So that's why they're like on board with her getting it done. But she was just kind of like telling them when she first found out she was going to throw herself down the stairs. She was drinking a bunch of weird stuff. Like she was really hurting herself because she wanted to get rid of her pregnancy. And so luckily her mom was just like, well, we're just going to have to find a safe way to do it. And then that's how they ended up here.
Well, that's so typical of Republicans or the evangelicals or religious folks. We're against abortion. We don't want any of
Mm-hmm.
you having abortion. Now, if it happens to us, we'll sneak it under the radar because it's about us and it's about shame. So
Pretty much.
it's not really about abortion. It's about controlling other people and especially women. And that's what's so disingenuous about the church. They're going to hide a sexual abuser, but don't get an abortion. They want to judge you, but they don't do anything that's right. They take
Yeah.
advantage of people.
Hmm.
And how can you put your trust in a church that's willing to do that?
I don't know. I don't know. That's not, my mother was just like, if she was like, there's not enough like drugs in the world back then that would have made me knowingly put you in harm's way. I don't care if it was a church or wherever else. She was like, I would rather burn that church down than to take you back to that church, put you back in that situation. Um, it's pretty difficult to just kind of I don't want like her mother to get beat up on like that, but because you got to think like this is her mindset. This is what she was programmed to think. Like she's on a whole nother planet when it comes to, I don't understand why she's behaving like this. She just needs to act right. She wasn't raised like this. She didn't come from a home like this. We go to a good church, blah, blah, blah. Like she really can't comprehend why her daughter is so angry all the time. Like, I don't know what planet this woman is on, but she does not wrap her mind around the fact that you're putting her in a situation where her abuser, like I guess they go to church like 3 days a week or something like that.
Of
And you don't
course.
understand why she doesn't want to go to church. Yeah, you don't understand why she doesn't want to go to church. You don't understand why she's angry. You don't understand why she's like, I don't even believe in God anymore. You don't understand why she's saying this stuff or why she feels that way. Like her mother, she doesn't get it. It's like talking to a wall when you talk to this woman. Like she doesn't understand it at all. She just doesn't get it. The only thing she could do is talk about forgiving and praying and all that stuff. And I pray. There's people around me that pray, but this woman prays loud. Like at night, she goes in the room, and when she's praying, like you can hear her out loud praying. And I'm like, okay. It's just she's on a whole nother planet. And in the middle of all this stuff, her daughter is just in the middle, just wilding out, just
Well,
completely wilding out.
I'm an old white guy sitting in my living room in the Midwest. and I know what's going on with this kid. I know her parents fucked her up. They aren't helping her in any way, and I can recognize why a kid
Hmm.
reacts like this. I mean, it's one thing if we were talking about a 30-year-old woman, but we're talking about a 17-year-old kid. What do you expect if you sexually abuse her and
Yeah.
then fucking do all these things with churches and send her back to the place that she's most afraid of? It's, I will tell you this, old soul, though, having been a parent, and I know you're a parent too, there's two things you can do to maintain sanity in your home. She's like any kid, you know, they know mom's not going to do anything, so they're going to talk back and they're going to do all the same shit that they always do, but they don't know what you're going to fucking do. That woman could be crazy. I'm not going to fuck with her. And if that doesn't work, there's one more option you have. Bring in the
Hmm.
big guns, bring in your daughter, and she'll probably straighten that shit out real quick.
Yeah. We had a conversation because the doctor, when he gave her antibiotics, like he was saying one of the things that we need to discuss, I think it's like a 7-day cycle she has to take the medication for. He
Mhm.
says like we need to start talking to her. Well, it's telling her mother you need to start considering birth control because her mother is completely against that. Um, and we were just sitting there talking like it doesn't make sense for you to be against it at this point. You know what she's out here doing. I don't think you want to put her in this situation again. But she's against it, but she did say earlier today that she does feel like that might be the best thing to do after, she
Yeah.
called her husband and spoke with him about it. So for me, I didn't even know why that was a non-option. Like, you sure you don't want to like put her on it? Like, are you sure? Um, but she seemed like she's come around to the idea of putting her on it.
You know, the thing is, she was sexually abused. Nothing was done about it. She feels like she's damaged good. So she becomes hypersexual because she's got nothing to fucking lose. This isn't hard to figure out how she
Yeah.
got where she got. And her parents should be bright enough to figure it out and try to fix the situation, like take her out of the church, give her some attention,
Hmm.
give her some discipline. This girl's obviously been
Yeah.
allowed to do whatever the fuck she wants, and now the parents are going, "My God, what am I supposed to do?" Well, you should have parented her in the fucking first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. And you should, like, there's certain things outside of us as parents that we can't control. But once you know what's going on, you need to step up and protect your child.
Yeah,
And they're not doing that. They still go to the same church. And it's just mind-boggling to me. Even it's just seeing the situation she's in and saying, well, I don't believe in birth control. I don't want to do that. And it's just kind of like, what are you thinking? It's a completely different mindset than what I'm used to when I have, parents that come here with their daughters. It's a different situation with these parents. They're different. They're
yeah,
very different. They're very um
stupid,
I've never seen religion on this level before.
really.
I've never seen it. Other on television, I've never like seen it in person because when you talk to the mother, it's just different. She's not there's something missing there.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even imagine like growing up in a house with a hardcore Trump supporter like that, like looking at his socials, he is he's hardcore in it. So and then she's just caught in the middle of all this. So
Uh,
I'm just hoping she'll be okay. And even if she did, finish high school and just wanted to move right away, typically for me, I would just say, unless she's going to like a university, it might be a good idea for her to stay home for a little bit, let her gain her footing while she acclimates herself to college. But in this particular situation, I don't think that might be the best thing. I think the best thing might be for her, like, I'm of age now. Let me remove myself from the situation. I kind of agree with her on that. That could be what's best for her. Because staying in her current home environment, I don't see how anybody does that. I'd be pissed off too, to be honest with you.
yeah, a Trump-fuck dad and a hyper religious mom, that isn't a recipe for good things. She'd probably be better off to go someplace else. And when we talk again next, just bring us up to date with what's going on there. And in talking about updates, I'm curious. Remember our buddy? Can't remember his name. David, was it? That you tried to give some learning to by sending him a video of the podcast. Have you heard back from him, or is he still radio
Mhm.
silent?
He's still radio silent.
Wow.
However, I did make him because he loves bread. He just loves it. So I baked him a loaf of bread. I gave it to my daughter and Zachary. They took it over to him. They talked to him for a little bit. They said he's cool. He's just like, I guess he was telling them like, hey, I'm just flying solo. I'm like just trying to be by myself for a little bit. So he's just held up in his place, doing whatever it is that he's doing and not really talking to too many people. I
All
guess
right.
he just like goes to work, come home, and then that's it. But so I'm not sure if he's just going through like a depressive stage or what's going on with him, but it's not like he's just not talking to me. He ain't talking to nobody. He's
Wow.
just at home by himself doing him. So, you know,
It
that's
sounds
pretty
like
much
you.
it. But he took the bread though.
Oh, fuck yeah, I'd take the bread. Sounds like you gave him a bit of an epiphany and he doesn't know what the hell to do with it. You brought up something before we went on about colleges in Florida. Maybe you can expand on that.
Oh, yeah, so Florida, thanks to Ron DeSantis, they got rid of their DEI programs in their universities. So the thing about that is, it's like almost, I don't know if it's like right over 80% or just under 80% of their athletic program is like made up of minorities, right?
Right, right.
But the staff at the school it was only 3%. So they didn't have adequate representation. So they bumped that up to 5% of the staff is minorities. When they did that, DeSantis was like, wait a minute, that's just too much. We got too many like black people taking over these schools. So he canceled out all of the DEI programs at the universities in Florida. So then the NAACP stepped in and they're like, hey, you're not going to build up your athletic programs off the back of minorities, but you don't want to have adequate representation for them. So they put out a memo pretty much just saying any child that's trying to go to college on a scholarship, we're not going to go to Florida. We're going to go to other universities. And part of that is we do have to set an example because once they do that in Florida, next thing you know, it's going to be Alabama State. Next thing you know, it's going to be Arizona State. Like it's going to be all of these other states falling in line. So the goal is to to say, hey, we're going to take our black children out of your schools and put them in other schools and let your program suck for a couple of years, let you start losing and all of that stuff. And then when you reinstate your DEI, then we'll allow for our students to come back. So that's what's going on with Florida right now. On top of that, I don't understand why DeSantis is not concentrating on other stuff because I don't know if you've seen what's going on in Haiti, and that's not that far from Florida. So that's where they're going to migrate to. And he's not doing anything to address that issue as far as like immigrants or none of that stuff. He's just strictly worried about it's too many black teachers at my colleges. I don't like that. So he got a lot of other stuff going on in Florida. Why he picking on us, I don't know. Especially now they put abortion on the ballot and legalizing marijuana on the ballot. So I do think that coupled with the NAACP getting our students out of Florida universities, that's not going to look too good for him, and especially Florida in general in this upcoming election. I do think, and then I just heard actually today that the Biden administration has just set up shop in Florida. So we're going to start running candidates out there, trying to get some more people on the ballot. And we just kind of want them to speak out against the abortion laws. We want them to make sure that they get marijuana on the ballot. And then we're just going to say, hey, the only way that we can do this is if you put Democrats in charge. So that was pretty good to hear that today. So that was pretty
Yeah,
cool. I like
yeah,
that.
absolutely. Florida fucked up because they went
Yeah.
to the Supreme Court and now they're basically making it legal to give the 6 month or 6 week abortion ban, which is essentially a full abortion
Hmm.
ban. But they also said we can put the
Yeah.
abortion question on the ballot. And that's not going to bode well
Hmm.
for Republicans because we saw what happened in Ohio. We saw what happened in Arkansas. big red states, but 70% of the people are for Roe v. Wade. So what they did in effect
Yeah.
with the marijuana thing and with the abortion ban, they're putting up a big neon sign saying millennials and Gen Zs come and vote this time. This one's important for you. So not only are they not going to have an abortion ban when it's all said and done, they're probably going to get marijuana is legal. But with all these Democrats and all these liberals coming, those legislators that are up for reelection are going to have fucking problems because there's going to be a ton of people voting and voting those motherfuckers out.
Yeah, and here's the thing about the polls in Florida, what they're not capturing is having that. Well, and I didn't know. I was like talking to my brother about it because he follows sports and he knows all about college football. But he was just saying how huge it would be if Florida, like their athletic program started to suck and they started losing. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I guess it's like a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
So when you couple that with the ballot initiatives, I never thought that I would hear anybody say Florida would be in play, but it's kind of like an interesting plot twist to watch that. Because there's people who've never voted before, didn't have a desire to vote, they're kind of like whatever. Those people are not being polled because they haven't voted before. So
right,
it's kind of like up in the air. What's going to happen with Florida when you have all of these people voting that never voted before, with the NAACP backing other candidates, pulling students out of these universities? It's going to be, I don't know. It's going to be up in the air. I try not to get hopeful about Florida, but it does seem like DeSantis has done everything possible to help Democrats win in his state. It's nonsensical to me that he would take an increase of 3% to 5% as some kind of threat to white
right,
people. I don't understand that. You still have 95% of your staff that's white. Why are you upset that 5% is minorities? Especially when your program is pretty much all minorities. So it's like we can play basketball and football, but other than that, that's all we good for. That's all you want us to get out of your university. They've
right.
taken away certain programs, like African studies, and they've taken away all of that stuff out of their universities. These aren't high schools. These are universities. So some students, they couldn't even go to Florida if they wanted to because the courses that they need, they're being banned at universities in Florida's, so they don't even have access to certain books. So they have no choice but to go to other universities. So when you take the academics away from those people and then you take your athletes out of your sports program, what does that leave your universities at? It's not higher education at this point. I don't get it. I
Yeah.
don't get that at all. Like, how
Well, you're
racist can you be? It's so weird to me.
how stupid can you be? You're what that does is take all your D1 schools and make them D3. If you take all the athletes of color,
Yeah,
and frankly, if I'm a young parent with a young son who's getting a scholarship and he's got Florida or he's got Michigan or he's got Minnesota or Nevada, Las Vegas, I ain't sending them to Florida.
right,
That's fucking crazy.
right.
But Florida's got a unique situation. We have a lot of people fearful of Donald Trump. But in Florida, you've got Ron DeSantis, who is Donald Trump Jr. He basically
Yeah,
espouses the same thing in the same ways Donald Trump has. So these people have a special experience. They know what Donald Trump has done and can do, but they're feeling what Ron DeSantis has done. You're probably right. He is fucking this up for the Republican Party, and God bless him for it. But Ron
yeah,
DeSantis is not doing the right thing. And there is, I think Biden and his people really see a possibility. They're not banking on it, but they're seeing a possibility of Florida maybe turning blue in this particular election. And let me tell you, if Florida turns blue, Donald Trump or any Republican cannot win. They cannot win.
that's a done deal right there.
It
I
is a
know
done
that
deal.
I remember I was watching something. It was a couple of months ago, and it was medical students in Florida, and they were just talking about how they had to like scramble and like, at soon as they could, move to other universities because there were certain fields that they're not allowed to teach in Florida anymore. So anything that has to do with like gender affirming care, um, certain OBGYN programs and stuff, they completely discontinued that. So just think about if you want to be an OB doctor, how are you going to be an expert or the best in your field if you're going to a school that doesn't teach that? So that was the academic side of it, and I thought that's pretty bad. Like that's crazy because that's like your best and your brightest that is going to your medical schools and your law schools. I didn't even think about the athletics program there
Right.
being affected because you think it's such a moneymaker, like who would jeopardize that? But I guess they didn't have a problem doing it, so now they have to deal with us and our boycotts and our protests because we really don't want that to spread to other states or give them permission to do that. It's kind of like if you get caught slipping on Florida, then they would just assume that they can do that everywhere. So
Right.
we're just not going to let that happen. It's going to be interesting to watch because there's no way that you can read what the outcome is going to be because it's attracting people who've never voted before. It's
Right.
attracting more young people to the ballot initiatives and the programs at the universities. There's going to be so many more young people in Florida turning out that are not being caught in any poll because they're not on anybody's radar. So it's
Well,
just going to be interesting to watch Florida. But I do appreciate hearing that Biden saw an opening there, and he's like, "Hey, I got a couple $100 million. Let's put some over here in Florida and try to prop some of these people up." So I think that's a good opportunity and a good way to spend the money. But we'll
well,
see.
there's another problem for Florida and other states like Florida, over and above the education and people not wanting to go to school there or play sports there. There is, in fact, doctors and teachers moving the fuck out of Florida because
Hmm.
they're afraid of the
Yeah.
risks they're put at as being teachers. God forbid somebody accuses them of teaching critical race theory. I mean, it's like the Salem witch trials. Somebody doesn't like somebody, they say, oh, he's teaching CRT. And the same with doctors. If you give somebody the wrong advice that legislators don't like, they could be going to trial over this stuff. People have tough enough lives. They don't need to be on walking on eggshells through their whole careers. So people are actually uprooting and getting the fuck out of Florida and other states, which is going to pose a problem at some point, not too distant future. You don't have enough doctors, you don't have enough teachers, you have no uh, athletes of color. This is quickly becoming a spot that could be a hellhole that needs to be fixed, and the people in control now just don't have the tools to fix it.
Right. And then when you think about it, even like, when you see how much people in Florida pay for insurance, like homeowners insurance,
Yeah,
car insurance, that's insane. I don't even know how anybody could even think about retiring there at this point.
no,
And then, especially what they did with the migrants, which is just it's just a show because you have other states, I think like in Kentucky and stuff, they were offering immigrants, and there's other states too, just like $5,000 to like move to their states to like work crops and different things like that, which is completely exploitive for these immigrants because even though you're giving them this cash up front, they're not paying them well. They're not giving them like sick time and all this other kind of stuff, but they do need them there in their states to work. And they're offering money for migrants to come there. But what does Florida do? What does Texas do? They send them to states where they're not needed and they create a problem where there doesn't have to be a problem. Why don't you send them to states where they are needed? I kind of don't agree with that either because the programs that they have where the migrants can be beneficial moving there, it's really not beneficial for them because they still get taken advantage of as far as pay and insurance and all of that stuff. It's still not beneficial to them, but they are needed in so many states and they're actually offering money. But of course, we don't hear about that type of stuff on the news. So while Florida is kicking them out, there's other states like, hey, we need immigrants, we need migrants over here, but they never get that message because nobody's reporting on that. It's
right.
it's pretty egregious when you think about it.
Well,
There's no need to kick them out where there are places that they're needed.
well, it's cutting your nose off to spite your face. Let's be perfectly honest. You don't get houses built
True.
or repaired. You don't get food. You don't get bridges and roads built without migrant workers. Florida's in a tough
Right.
situation right
Hmm.
now. They don't have enough workers to accommodate the people who need things done. And it's all about performance and perception for Ron DeSantis and the legislature, but they're killing their state in the process just so they can be right. Eventually, that comes down to a breaking point. And what's going to happen is these people, hopefully in 2024, get their ass kicked out because they're not working in the best interest of the state. It's just all about this bullshit ideology. They're going to need people to build houses or
Right.
to harvest vegetables and fruit, to build roads and shit like that. If you don't have teachers, if you don't have doctors, if you don't have migrants, you have a big peninsula with nothing fucking going on.
Yeah, and you can look at Florida and you can see like just like these abandoned lots where there were projects that was going on and now they're just sitting empty. There's nothing there. And then Florida is like they have so many different weather events. Who do they think comes behind, a tornado and cleans this stuff up? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And there's
Yeah.
nobody there to do that. And then the people can't do it themselves because their insurance policies are lapsing because they can't pay an extra $500 a month for homeowners insurance. Like, who can afford that? It's horrible. Um, and I know that from what I see on Florida, it does, when I look at the television, looks like the people are like on board with this stuff. Like they're happy and they're content with that. But when they vote, it doesn't it doesn't go that way. So
Right.
we're not seeing how the people really feel. That's not what they're showing us. And so this election, like I have my eye out on Florida just to see what happens. And even if we don't win, how close was that margin going to be? Like, how
Right.
close is that going to be? I do think that I was seeing people say that, Democrats and liberals, they snuck these the abortion and and the marijuana on the ballot, like we snuck, all this stuff. Like, no, we didn't. We got the signatures. We followed step by step. We did what we were supposed to do. Now we have the ballot initiative. There was no sneaking or anything. If it wasn't enough people that wanted those initiative, we wouldn't have got the signatures to do it. So now we're going to do it. And I think they took it all the way to like the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court was like, nah, they did what they're supposed to do. So now it's on the ballot. It is what it is. So they either change their tone on it and, hopefully stay a little bit longer, or they could just keep their feet dug in the sand and lose.
Well, in November, the state of Florida is going to undertake a test. And that test is that do you vote Republican or do you vote Democrat? Do you want to improve your lot in the state of Florida? Now, if they follow suit
Yeah.
and vote in all these Republicans, given the state of the state and given the way things are going, at that point, all you can say is, well, you're going to get what you deserve. Don't come crying to us expecting help if you put yourself in that fucking situation. And I think there's enough young people in that state that are saying, wait a minute, this isn't going right. We haven't been involved, but now we want to be involved because this abortion issue, the marijuana issue, the migrant issue, there are people, and like you said, this isn't working for the Republicans because you're basically motivating these young people who don't normally vote, that would vote against Republicans. Now you're motivating them to come out. You're fucking around and finding
Yeah.
out. And apparently they aren't going to know
Yeah,
any better until they find out.
I never thought Florida would be in play. Like Florida is Florida. That's what I thought. When they started the ballot initiatives, I just figured, they might get close maybe, but I never thought that they would rally enough people to get that done. But it's just kind of like, once you pass that mark, it's you kind of have like a different way of thinking, like, you know what, we did this, we can keep going and we can, keep we could really make this happen. So like once you feel that little success, then that motivates you to keep going. There's
Right.
no defeatist attitude at all. It's like we can actually do this. So that it's pretty interesting to watch Florida get together. And it looks like pretty much the young people. And I know that's I know that's who the Biden campaign is targeting them. And I do think if you have like just some regular like moderates, it just depends on the messaging as far as like, making it more affordable, all of that stuff. I think just the insurance alone is enough to make some of these people say, yeah, I want to go back to paying $100 a month. I can't afford this. I
Right.
need insurance. I need this. I need that. So it'll be interesting to watch. So
Well,
fingers crossed. I never thought that I would say we got a chance in Florida. I don't know if we'll do it or not, but the fact that there's a chance is actual improvement.
well, the fact that they put it on the ballot, that tells me, if nothing else, the momentum is headed the right way. You know,
Yeah.
it always seemed that Florida was a no-go situation. There's no way you'd ever change it, but the momentum has changed if they are putting the abortion issue on the ballot. That never bodes well for the Republicans. You know, they're shitting themselves because it's on the ballot. Because when this is done, they almost certainly will make abortion illegal or legal in Florida, and that will get the fucking Republicans pulling their hair out.
Yeah, I know that they say 6 weeks, but it's just like a lot of these other red states where if you like, let's say you find out 3 weeks,
Right.
but there's all these loopholes. You still got to jump through all these hoops and turns and flips and all this other kind of stuff. And by the time you go through all of that, you're past the 6 week mark.
Right.
So even like right now, people still don't have access to the health care that they need. I was so I'm like the abortion initiative, okay, yeah, I got that. But marijuana too, that kind of let me know like, oh yeah, this is going in the right direction when they can get marijuana on the ballot in Florida. Like I
Yeah.
knew the abortion because that's wildly popular, but I never thought marijuana would pass either. But here it is. So
Well, um,
it's
Meryl,
crazy that they let this happen.
well, it
Why didn't
happened.
they do this in like why did they put all they could have waited till after the election to start screwing with people. Why would you start screwing with people in an election cycle? Like it's like the timing is just crazy to me. Like y'all couldn't wait. Like you just you had to do it.
Well, I think,
I don't maybe they're just impulsive like that.
I think the Republicans
It's
now are
crazy.
finally realizing they fucked up, overturning Roe v. Wade. They thought they'd be the cool kids on the block. Turns out they expected a red wave in 2022. It didn't work. And at that point, anybody with any intelligence would say, well, we fucked that up. So let's change our direction here so we can save ourselves come 2024. But they don't do that. They embrace it. They double down. They triple down. And what they want to do is take their ideology and shove it down the throats of people who think totally the opposite. And frankly, that's not going to work. Now they're starting to scramble and figure out, oh, this could
Yeah.
be a problem in 2024. Yeah, we've been saying that for 2.5 years, 3 years. You should have been able to recognize that. But now they're going to try to pull away from it or sit on the fence. And then you got somebody like Donald Trump, who's fucked no matter which way he goes. He's not responding to the abortion issue because he knows it's a problem. But here's his problem. If he votes for an abortion ban, a national abortion ban, then 70% of the country are going to say, fuck you, Donald, and vote against him. So if he then tries to placate
Yeah.
that 70% by saying, well, we could do 15 weeks. Well, now he's lost the evangelicals because that's not good enough. Donald Trump is in a corner. Whatever decision he makes, he uh, he can't win. And he said to yesterday that in the next couple of weeks or next week, he's going to make an announcement about abortion. But let me remind you, every 2 weeks, he said we're going to have infrastructure week in 2 weeks. So I don't expect Donald Trump to say anything
Hmm.
because he can't win in that deal.
Yeah, and after the infrastructure week, we never got that health plan either. And
No,
I think part of the problem with Republicans is they gave the left a talking point, and the talking point is they're never satisfied. So when they say, okay, we just want to push the abortion issue back and we want to make it a states' right issue. And then the left comes and says, nope, they're now that it's going back to the states, now they're going to try to force that on everybody. And then they're like, no, 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 it's just the states' right thing. Then they turn around and they try to make it a national issue. And then the same thing, like, we're not coming after birth control. What happened? And the left is like, yep, they're coming after birth control next. We're not going to do that. What do? They turn around and come after birth control. We never
Right.
said IVF because, like, why would we think that? But they took it a step further and did that. So their word is not bond. And then they keep giving us talking points like, we told y'all that was going to happen. We said this was going to happen. Oh, and by the way, here's a tape of them saying that it wouldn't happen.
Right.
And yet it did when we told you that it would. So it's just kind of like their word, like nobody trusts them. And then they just keep proving our points over and over and over again. You can see it in like the committee hearings, like they just never, ever, it's like never enough for them. They need to be more extreme, more extreme, more extreme. And the only thing we have to say is they're going to keep getting worse. They keep proving that they're going to get worse until you vote against them. So like every talking point that we have, we didn't just come up with it out of thin air. They gave us the talking point. I
Yeah.
don't get that part.
They
I
pretty
don't
much
get that
handed
part at all.
they pretty much handed it to us, and we just need to run with it. And I think we will, and I think it will be eye-opening experience for Republicans in November. I tell you what, old soul, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Old Soul is with us today, as she is normally Thursdays. Always a pleasant sight to see. Now, Old Soul, you brought up something before we came back on the air here, and I'm taken aback. I'm gobsmacked. You said you were talking about Donald Trump and how he recently lied. What the fuck? Please tell us about it.
Well, okay, so he lied. I guess so this was a immigrant family, right?
Right.
And so the daughter, she was killed by another immigrant man. He reached out to the family, but I don't think he reached out to the family or anything. I think he tried to, but for some reason they didn't connect. And so then I don't know if it was a rally or if he was just talking. I don't know because I can't keep track of him.
It was a rally. I think
But
I
he was
saw it.
saying that he spoke. Yeah, and he was saying that he spoke to the family, and the family was saying how, she had a big smile, she lit up the room, all this other stuff. What he was telling them was something that he read verbatim in an article. He never talked to this family. He never, like, nothing. You know what I mean? So her sister had to come out and like clarify that, which wasn't clarifying it. It was just saying he lied. He never talked to them. He never extended an olive branch to them or any of this stuff. Um, but I don't know why he would think that they would. This is an immigrant family. And you're saying that they're rapists, they're murderers, they're animals. You want to lock them up, you want to kick them out of the country, but yet you want to invite them to your rally so they can stand on stage with you with the little stupid thumbs up thing that he does and pose for pictures.
Yeah.
Like, they lost a family member. They're not props. And then when he went to the funeral of the officer that got killed, from my understanding is he did reach out to the family, and what they said was like, hey, we don't want to like politicize this. We just kind of want a day of peace so that we can bury our loved one. His widow is there with a 1-year-old baby.
Yeah.
She didn't want all of this extra stuff coming around. He goes to the funeral anyway, and then he stands outside and holds like this little impromptu press conference while this woman is grieving the loss of her husband and her baby is going to grow up without his father. That
Yeah.
was bad enough. And then I turn around and I see Officer Segnick, the one that died, the Capitol Police officer. He had said that I guess Trump had a rally, and one of the guys that was singing that Jan 6 national anthem now, so it's replaced our national anthem and it's the one with the Jan Sixers. Well, the
Right.
guy that handed Trump I guess like on the phone or something, he was the one who laid the final blow to his brother. And Trump is on stage saying that this man is a hero and a political prisoner. And he's also saying that he backs the blue, but the people that murdered his brother, you're saying they are hostages. But I was happy that Officer Segnet's brother came out and actually spoke up and said, "Hey, the guy that killed my brother, yeah, that's the guy on the phone with Trump."
Wow. Well, the thing.
I'm literate. I had a bunch to say, but
Well, there's
you
more
should
to
talk because I'm
this.
speechless.
Well, there's more to this little girl's thing. He said he talked to the family, which he did not do, and they came out and said, no, he never talked to us. He also suggested this little girl was 17. She was actually 25. So he didn't even have enough common sense to know how old she was, or he thought that saying she was 17 was going to be better. And then you throw in the fact is like you said that this little girl, this young woman, was an immigrant herself. Now, based on the way Donald Trump talks about immigrants, about being animals and that sort of thing, you would think he'd be glad that this immigrant was killed. But he was able to make some hay with it because you see, Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about abortion. He doesn't give a fuck about immigration. All he wants is a talking point that he thinks will get him popularity and votes. He doesn't have any real
Yeah.
feelings about this stuff. And that's why he'll do what he does, and that's why he'll switch his stance. That's why he can't come up with an abortion stance as yet. Donald Trump doesn't care anything about this stuff. He cares about Donald Trump and what's going to be expeditious for him to get elected.
You know, it's one thing when he stands on stage and he says, "People have come up to me with tears in their eyes, and they said this and they said that. I talked to this one great person, and he told me this and he told me that." He's lying, but he's lying in a general term, right?
Yeah.
But when you actually take a real person and a real family that's grieving and you prop it up, and it's literally it's a prop, you know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
just That's a different level for me. I have crashing a police officer's funeral with a grieving wife and a baby and all of these other officers there. That's pretty horrible. Then you hear Officer Signick, his brother, is like, "Oh yeah, Trump is kicking it with my brother's killer, singing a national anthem with him." Like, and then I don't have any words. I'm at a loss for words at the lack of humanity in the whole situation. And then what makes it even worse is there's not one single Republican calling him out on it.
No.
Like
No.
they're just not saying, they're they're quiet. You're back in the blue, but you're okay with him crashing a funeral of an officer when his widow told him, "I don't want that. I don't want that stress at my husband's funeral. Like, I just don't want to make this a political thing." And then when you think about it, like there's officers that pass away in this country like pretty much every day. I forgot what the number is. There was just like one officer right before that was shot. One before him was like killed at a traffic stop. He got like hit by a car or something. You pick this one officer to do this to, and it's like, why? And
Right.
then when you break it down, it's just because Biden was having the political function with Obama and Clinton. And so he was trying to spin the narrative that, "Hey, I'm here with this grieving family. They just lost their husband and father, while Joe Biden is over here raising millions of dollars with Obama and Clinton." That was the spin that he was going for. It didn't work, but even if it did work, it doesn't make it any better. And then you have like an actual person that was murdered, and you're just like palling it up with the murderer, and then trying to make it seem like the murderer needs to be released because he's such a great person and he's a hostage and he's this and he's that. It is like, I can't even just like imagine what these families are going through. And I was
Like,
thinking about the funeral that he crashed, and I remember telling my daughter this. I was like, couldn't be you. It couldn't be you. I don't care if he has Secret Service or not. I'm going to let them know if you want to keep him safe, you will keep him up out of this church or wherever we at. Because if he come in here, he is going to touch every wall up in here because we going to toss him. He going to be bouncing off wall to wall. There's no way that I would allow for this orange, decrepit, I can't use the. I just would. I don't understand how you can do that when somebody's family is grieving a loss, and you're just like, "Oh, here's my moment to make Joe Biden look bad." How do you crash a funeral? Like the audacity. It,
I'll help you along
I
here.
can't. I don't get it.
I'll help you along here. Orange, decrepit, shit smelling piece of shit moron. I think that suits him the best. Now you have to understand that Donald Trump's mind has got to be spinning. He is a narcissist who is cornered with little opportunity to get out. You know, we know that on April 15th he is scheduled to go to his criminal trial in the Manhattan district. Now he's tried every way to wiggle his way out of this. He recently filed a motion to get a delay or dismiss a delay, I think it was. And the delay was for the Supreme Court to make the immunity decision. Now he has a problem with that because when he was trying to take that case to federal court, he waived the immunity possibility. But what he's trying to
Yeah.
do is trying to get immunity for some witnesses and some evidence that may have happened after he was president. Well, that's not a thing. He's not going to get that. And the judge came back today or yesterday and said, "Yeah, no, we're not getting a delay." I think that with Judge Juan Marchand, we're not dealing with somebody as easy as the civil courts. He's not going to play this bullshit. At this point, the trial is set to start on April 15th. They've tried to delay it to no avail.
I don't know how he think he could just cherry pick the state's case. That's funny. I don't know how dumb you have to be, but okay. But it just reminds me like something my grandmother would say. She'd be like, "Oh, he is nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs,"
Yeah,
and he
exactly.
is.
He is. He's very
He,
nervous.
I don't think it gets any more nervous. I don't think he gets more nervous than that. But the only thing that makes him dangerous is the way that he projects when he is nervous, um, the amount of destruction and damage that he gets when he gets nervous. I saw like earlier today, some guy got arrested for texting threatening messages to Letitia James, and I'm not sure which judge it was, but I know it was either Angeron or Marchand. I'm not sure which one it was, but he just got arrested for that. Um, and I'm just sitting here like, what he is doing is dangerous. And it's people like this guy that just got arrested, they're going to be the ones that suffer for this. And yes, he was wrong. And a lot of his other supporters are wrong, but they're like all into this delusion. And there's nobody there trying to protect us or them. Even with his stock, he's trying to use them to prop his stock up. And we already know they're going to pump it up, pump it up, and pump it up. And then Donald Trump is just going to dump it and leave them holding the bag. It's just like there's no FCC, there's nobody who is saying, you know what, wait a minute, we're not going to let him do this to people. They're going to allow him to do it. And I'm just sitting here watching like there's no protection for any of these people that they're pumping this crap into their head.
Well,
They're the ones that's going to suffer for this.
we know in the
It's
Manhattan district
crazy.
with Judge Marchand, he has the gag order. Now, the gag order started out, it was limited, and Donald Trump thought he found a loophole, so he started going after the judge's daughter. Now, the gag order was
Mhm.
expanded to include the judge's family and the district attorney's family. And in that expansion, they said you cannot talk about these people or direct anybody else to talk about these people. Well, Donald Trump, again, still
Yeah.
looking for a loophole, says, I got an idea. And he posts on Truth Social a Fox News segment where the Fox News host and this Professor Turley starts talking shit about the judge's daughter. So when he did that, he violated the gag order. And I'm sure he's thinking, well, I didn't say it. They said it. I'm just letting people know. Well, you directed somebody else to say it and you put it on True Social. You fucked up. You violated the gag order.
Yeah.
Now, like you're saying, what's going to be done about it? That's the question. What is going to be done about it? At some point, he has to be made accountable. And the only thing left to do with him now, with the gag order, if you violate the gag order in New York, you can't be fined more than $1,000 or put into jail for up to 30 days. So finding him $1,000 does no good to try to get your courtroom back in fucking order. So the only option he really has is to put him in jail for a day or two or 30 days. But that has to happen. Now, if Donald Trump wants to be the martyr, let him, because I don't think he has any fucking understanding what a week in jail is going to be like.
No. And you know what? Thank you for saying that because every outlet, even like Brian Tyler Cohen, even Midas Touch Network, they all have said he possibly violated the gag order. Did he violate the gag order? And it's like they're making it as a form of a question. Like, we don't know that he violated the gag order. Why is it a question? He violated it. Clear as day. He
Yeah.
violated it. When everybody is questioning it, maybe he did it. What's the judge going to do? Da, 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 da. He violated it. And like you said, the question is, what is the judge going to do about it? And I just kind of look at it as like, we on our own. Because if he is threatening their family members and they're not willing to put him in jail, he ain't going to jail for hurting us. You know what I mean? Like they can't
Right.
protect their own family. We expect for them to protect us. It's almost like the system is just like aiding and abetting his criminal activities.
Well, they obviously
I mean,
have.
if the judge want to do something, he can do something, but I just stop holding my breath when it comes to these judges. And then they give him permission to make threats. They'll say, instead of saying, hey, you can't threaten nobody. Nobody is getting threatened, period. They'll say, okay, yeah, well, you can't threaten this person, but you can still threaten the DA. Or you can't, threaten the court staff, but you can still threaten the judge. It's like, no, you're giving him permission to threaten certain people when he should not be allowed to threaten anybody. What other court case have you heard of where they have told the defendant, you can threaten me as a judge, and yes, you can threaten the prosecutor, but don't threaten nobody else?
Well,
That makes no sense to me. They allow him to do it.
they do allow them to do it, and that either has to change or you've exposed the judicial system for the weak system it is. And that's one thing Donald Trump has done. If nothing else, for Donald Trump alone, he's been treated different. He's been treated better. He's been treated with kid gloves. And the judicial system should be embarrassed by this. I mean, if you can say anything you want, we should have every newscaster in the country on the left side media refer to him, instead of former president, rapist Donald Trump, and see how he likes that shit, and then scream about your First Amendment right. Because it's true. It's not like it's a lie.
Rapist or defendant,
Yeah.
yeah, you can call him a defendant because that's exactly what he is. Put his inmate number out there or something. To me, and it's crazy because I come from a place where I know that the system has plenty of teeth, it has plenty of bites, and it can bring down the toughest people. They just don't want to do it. For whatever reason, they just don't do it. They have the ability to do it, they have the capability to do it. They just don't do it. You know
Well,
what I mean? It's just for whatever reason. I could have $1 million in the bank, but not pay my bills. I
yeah.
have the money. I'm just choosing not to do this. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So if you have the ability to stop him from being such a threat to us, then you need to exercise that ability. But they choose not to do it. It's not that they can't, it's just that they won't. It's just that they don't do it. There's no problem with putting him in a secure cell by himself. That's what they have the hole for. Let him
Right.
sit down there by himself for a little while, or he can listen to his little buddy, the one that just got locked up. I can't remember what his name is it Navarro?
Navarro. Yeah.
15, 15 days. and he's already screaming and crying and he needs to be let out and wham, wham, wham. It's you could do the same thing to Trump if you wanted to. They just don't want to.
Yeah. Well,
I said this before, and it's as horrible as this is, they're not going to do anything until a jurist is taken out, or so it'll have to be a high profile person. I'm thinking it's going to be a jurist. I just feel like that. When that happens, watch how efficient the system is. Just watch it. He needs to have someone take out one of their own, or assassinate someone that's one of theirs, and then watch how powerful the system is. Watch how quickly they bring him to his knees. Just
yeah.
watch. That has to happen in order for them to say, you know what, that's enough. But when it's us, we can be sacrificed, but they can't.
Right. Right.
Guarantee. Just watch how it works when that happens.
Now, when you're talking about this in the judicial system, uh, that's kind of a negative outlook on it. But the fact of the matter is all the evidence that we've seen proves what you're saying. There's got to be some accountability. They refuse to make the accountability. But I'll be honest, I think the Manhattan District case is going to be the death knell for Donald Trump. They can delay all these other ones all they want.
Mm-hmm.
But when he goes on trial and he gets convicted, I think he's done. He's not going to have the votes to win anything, and it's going to crush him emotionally, and it's going to hogtie him, whether he's in jail or not. Now, some people have said that because of the crimes in this Manhattan district, he probably won't go to jail. I disagree because the number of convictions he'll get multiple two-digit
Mm-hmm.
convictions. But there was a lawyer, Andrew Weissman, on TV said, under normal circumstances, they may not go to jail for one of these convictions because it's not as heavy as the other ones. But the fact is, Donald Trump has proved that he's a recidivist. He does it a lot. It's habitual. And
Mm-hmm.
that might bring everything to a level to
Yep.
put him in jail. I personally don't care if he goes to jail. I just want the convictions because at that point, that changes everything for him and the perception of Donald Trump in this country.
Yeah, Donald Trump, he's not a first time offender. I don't know where people get that from. It's just that, any other time he's been able to, skirt by with his little slaps on the wrist or whatever, but that's still on his record. Um, and then the other thing is when you go in front of a judge, when you've been convicted and you don't show any remorse, that's grounds for them to give you a harsher sentence. So I don't see Trump stand in front of the judge during his sentencing hearing and saying, you know what? I shouldn't have done this. I made a bad decision. I listened to the wrong person. I'm sorry about how this affected people. Whatever his feel, I don't see him doing that.
No,
I
he
see
won't
him
do that.
standing in front of the judge saying, this is a witch hunt. Everybody's attacking me, blah, blah, blah. And then at that point, it's up to the judge to say, you have no remorse. You don't have any redeeming qualities when it comes to this matter. So you need to go to jail. That could be an outcome. Whether that will happen or not, I don't know. But the fact that he has no remorse at all. He won't admit guilt. He won't take responsibility. All of that stuff should work against him when it comes to the sentencing phase of this trial.
Well, it
I don't
should.
see him
It should, and
apologizing or being remorseful for anything.
it should, and it will, and it's been proven out in the history of his behavior. And I'll tell you how. First of all, he's attacking the judge's family. He's attacking the court. He's attacking the witnesses. And when he's found guilty, the final decision of what his sentence is going to be is going to lay in the hands of Judge Juan Marchand. So he's done everything he can to
Mhm.
piss off and insult this judge and terrify his daughter and all this stuff. Donald Trump did the very same thing to Judge Engeron in the lawsuit. He tore his ass up. And how did it end up? A decision of 464 million fucking dollars. Donnie Trump should be saying, "Look, it didn't work this time. Maybe I shouldn't do it this time." But he's too stupid to grasp it.
And he's not even smart enough to get rid of Alina Haba.
No, no.
And all this money she's getting from him, she's just living it up, which is, you don't see her sitting around working on his case. You just see her bouncing from podcast to podcast, selling these stupid little trinkets or whatever, that fake jewelry that'll turn your neck green and all this other type of stuff. And he still hasn't learned to surround himself with better people. I guess I could just say that. But then again, he can't, because the better people won't have nothing to do with him. So
Right,
I don't
right.
know.
Well, Alina Habba is
I don't know.
probably going to get disbarred like so many other Trump lawyers. And she might even go to jail for her little incident down at Mar-a-Lago where she befriended a complainant, and she basically hoodwinked the woman and took away any possibility of her suing Donald Trump. She played this poor girl, and now they're taking it to the district attorney, and Alina Habba may have some real fucking problems. So I hope she's making a lot of money, making trips to the Bahamas, because at some time in the near future, she may not have the freedom to do everything she wants to do.
Nah, she should be saving her money,
Yeah.
but she's not. It's
No,
like,
fuck
put
no.
some aside for an attorney that you gonna need one day. Put some for aside when you're no longer able to practice law.
Yeah.
But she's just not doing that. She's not the brightest person, but then again, she surrounds herself with Trump, so I don't expect her to be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've got another situation with a courtroom down in Florida. We've got Aileen Cannon, who was the judge, who is certainly biased toward Donald Trump. She slow walked this thing. There's a bunch of motions that she has not given decisions on. She's just dicking around. And now we've got the situation where she wants to give jury directions, and she's given the options of letting the jurors read the classified documents, which is absolutely ridiculous and absolutely illegal, or just trusting the fact that Donald Trump or any other president can do whatever the fuck he wants with documents, which is also illegal. And what she wants to do is she wants to put this all off to make a decision on it. She wants to make a decision on it after the trial starts. And the reason she wants to do that is that if they do it after the trial starts and she dismisses the case, then Jack Smith can't do anything. So Jack Smith is now under the gun, and he's getting a little pissed off. He sent out a notice that said, fuck this. I'm about ready to go to the 11th Circuit. Everything she's doing is trying to slow this down and benefit Donald Trump. And he has to pick the right time to go to the 11th Circuit to get all this shit overturned and ultimately get her recused. But I think we're getting closer to that. I mean, I think we're like days away from him going to the 11th Circuit and saying, we've had a fuck enough. And she's not only corrupt, but she's also incompetent and stupid. So it shouldn't be any problem getting her recused from the case.
Yeah, I thought girlfriend was real good with the paperless orders.
Yeah, yeah,
But
great.
it's just like that can only take you so far. Sooner or later, you're gonna have to make a decision. And you're gonna have to put some stuff on paper. It's just what just That's what it's gonna be. But the other part of it, to me, what it looks like, it's a clear case of just blackmail. I think
Yeah,
there's another word for it, but I mean, like, that's pretty much what it is. Like, if you want to take him to trial and you want to hold him accountable, then I'm just going to leak our national security
right,
secrets to whoever. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like saying, oh, if you don't want these secrets to get out, then maybe you shouldn't prosecute him. Maybe you shouldn't take him to trial. But if you're going to do that, then I'm going to let the secrets leak. That's pretty much what she's doing. For me, when it comes to Jack Smith, I think that the 11th Circuit is sitting back and looking at him like, dude, what are you waiting on? We sitting here, come to us, let us do what we need to do. I think at this point, they are sitting there looking like, what's taking so long?
right.
I don't know what else he needs, what other evidence he needs, but
Well,
I've kind of like stopped holding my breath on that one.
I have heard that he's already been in conversations with the Solicitor General, which is the first step to going to the 11th Circuit. So that would suggest that
Mhm.
he's had enough and he's headed that way. But, Jack Smith is a very detail oriented guy. He wants to do everything the right way and he wants to protect himself because if you make a complaint against a judge and have her recused, that's a rarity. That doesn't happen very often. I was watching Neil Katyal, who was a Solicitor General, and he said in his entire career, it's only been one judge that's been recused from the case. And when it happened, he was upset by it because of the failure of the judicial system at that point. So it's a rarity for them to go, okay, yeah, get her the fuck out of there. But what she's done is so egregious and so incompetent, it shouldn't be a problem when they get to that point. And I think Jack Smith is trying to make sure that everything is in order so he doesn't miss on this one. If he misses on this one, this could cause him a lot more troubles.
But I know that she's already had 2 strikes against her,
Right.
both currying favor for Donald Trump. So she already has a pattern of this behavior. And then when you couple that with what she's been doing, and it's not like he has to kind of like reach and make an argument. This is all like laid out and it's clear as day to a layperson like you and I. So of
Right.
course they are going to see that. Even like Glenn Kirshner, like all of these people, like judges, lawyers, like everyone in that profession who know the system inside and out, all of them are saying this is more than enough. I think he should have done it prior, and I think that if he was waiting on something, the fact that it's pretty much a blackmail situation, that should be more than enough to go to the 11th Circuit, get her out of here, and then just let us move on. Give Trump another judge to attack since, that's what he likes to do in between eating cheeseburgers. Just give him something
Right.
else to do. You know what I mean? He can, and then he's just gonna make her a martyr. This was a fair judge. She was balanced. She saw the truth. Whatever. They got her kicked off the case. Go ahead and let him have a temper tantrum. Just get it over with.
Well,
I
well,
don't know what else it's gonna take, but you know,
I think what we have to consider here is that getting the 11th Circuit to overturn decisions is one thing. That shouldn't be a problem.
mhm.
But getting her kicked off the case, that's unusual and that's harder. And that's why he's probably being careful. And the fact that he's waiting this long tells me that that's in his mind. Get her recused, get her off the case. Because if it was just overturning decisions, he'd just send the fuckers over, get them overturned, and shove it in her face. But he's being really cautious about this. So this tells me he's got in his mind, we need to get rid of this bitch. Hopefully that's the case.
So what do you think? What else could she possibly do to make the case to get kicked off?
Uh, I don't know. I think we're pretty close to doing that. If he's talking to the Solicitor General, we might be days away from him attempting to do that. As far as what incompetent or corrupt thing that she could do to make it worse, I don't know. But I think the fear that she might be playing this game to delay everything until the trial starts so that she can then dismiss it and there's no recourse with Jack Smith. I think that's pretty egregious. I think Jack Smith recognizes that. I know the 11th Circuit would recognize that, and that is a huge red flag. Jack Smith has waited. I think I think it's coming pretty quick, like in days, literally, because they pushed it to the limit. She's pushed the envelope, and if they get to trial, then it's fucked. Then she can do whatever she wants. So he's really got to get this done ASAP.
The thing about her that I don't understand is I know that there's people in her ear that's letting her know that she's playing with fire.
Yeah.
There's other people around her who do understand the system and they do understand the the game that she's playing and how dangerous that it is. What I don't understand is her not taking that advice into consideration. I don't understand her throwing everything away for someone as vile as Donald Trump, seeing the pattern of what he does to people who do this for him, Rudy Giuliani and everyone else, seeing what happens to them, seeing how they end up. How can you see that with a foresight and then still follow in their footsteps? You know what
Well,
I mean? Like, I grew up watching people on drugs. That's why I don't do drugs.
right.
That's it's like I don't have to do drugs to know how this ends. I'm cool. You know what I mean? You can be observant and you can see, and then that will stop you from going down a certain path. She's observant, she sees, she knows, she has people warning her, and yet she's still walking down the same path. So in my mind, she's not stable enough to be a judge at all
No,
because her judgment is completely missing and she has no ethics at all. So not only should she not be on this case, but she shouldn't even be on the bench. I can't even think of someone going in front of her and expected to be treated fairly, knowing how biased she is.
right.
It's just it's egregious to keep her in her position. I don't even think she needs to be on the bench
I
at
think
all. It's
I th-
it's
I think it
it's
has to
like
do I think it has to do with incompetence and stupidity, but I also think it has to do with ego. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. She is clearly part of the cult. And these cult members have a different
mm,
mindset, damaged mindset. I wouldn't be surprised if in her mind she believes Donald Trump will be the president and he will take care of her once he is president. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But I also think ego comes into play. People are calling her out for doing stupid shit. We know how Trump-fucks react to that. They don't go, oh, yeah,
mhm.
maybe you're right. Maybe I should change it up. They double down, triple down, quadruple down. They never admit they're wrong. And that might be the fatal flaw for Aileen Cannon when it comes down to it. She will never own up to it. She will continue to do what she wants to do because she thinks she can get away with it. And the only way to stop her is to kick her off the fucking case.
Yeah, and when you put it like that, I guess it makes sense because when I look at just the run-of-the-mill Trump supporters, the cultists, I see just like the regular everyday people. I
Right,
see them. I see them with, the buffoonery of it all, how they
right,
dress up and they're over the top with all the Trump gear and
right,
the flags on their trunk and all this crazy stuff, right? And
right.
then when I look at people like Judge Cannon and, you know, people in Congress, I look at those people and I'm just like, oh, they just grifted. They're part of the, like, they know better. But the fact that these people are so gullible and ignorant, it's easy to take money from them. So they just grifting. That's how I look at them. But
Absolutely.
I guess what you just said is true because I don't take that regular everyday Trump cultist mentality when I'm looking at judges and attorneys. I look at them as part of the grift. So it's kind of difficult to look at a judge and be like, oh yeah, she's a diehard cultist. It's pretty wild to think of a judge like that instead of looking at her as being part of the grift, instead of somebody who is just, you know, taking shots of Kool-Aid to the head when it comes to Trump. Like they
Well,
is drinking it like it's nothing.
it's easier to
I guess
believe
that's
that.
a different way to look at her as being a cultist, and then I guess when I look at her like that, then I guess it could make more sense in my mind, like, "Oh, yeah, she really do believe this.
Well,
That's why she
well,
being so stupid, because
well.
she
Th- think.
believes it."
Well, think about this. If you have hard time understanding that Aileen Cannon might be a cultist, think about the members of the Supreme Court who are also cultists, that either knowingly say stuff that's wrong and do stuff that's wrong, or are so bought into the cult that they just don't have any other capability but to go along to get along. That's the problem I've been talking about. What's been exposed with Donald Trump in the last 7 years is just how damaged and how ineffective our judicial system is when it comes to white, rich, famous, powerful people. I always said rich, famous, and powerful, and one of the people came to my page. He goes, "Don't forget white." And I go, "Yeah, you're right about that, because if it was a person of color, it would be a definitely different situation." But Donald Trump always talks about the two-tier system, and he's right. There is a two-tier system. but we know for a fact that white, rich, and powerful is the one that gets the benefits of this two-tier system, and all the rest of us get fucked, and people of color get fucked even more. So we have a judicial system that's, for all intents and purposes, broken from the Supreme Court all the way down. When we are lucky enough to get the Democrats in power in the House and in the Senate and in the presidency, we first got to codify Roe v. Wade. Then we got to fix this fucking judicial system, because if we don't have a good judicial system, we don't have a democracy.
I never looked at the Supreme Court as cultists, and I still don't. I just look at them as being bought and evil.
Let
I
me,
don't think that they believe this
let,
in their confirmation hearings and stuff. Like, they know what to say. They and then sometimes you can see them when you put pressure on them. You can see them make certain decisions, and then the right is like, "Oh, I can't believe they did that." I just look at them as being just
corrupt.
immoral, unethical. I see them being corrupt. I see them being bought. Um,
You
I
don't
see they don't
you
believe any
you
of the
don't
stuff that they're doing. They are imposing their will on us, but they don't believe that crap.
I'll push
There's no
back
way.
I'll push back on that. You don't see Clarence Thomas as a cultist? I mean, because he's been
Oh,
like this
hell
all
no. That man is the devil himself.
yeah.
He walked up out of hell and took a seat on the Supreme Court. That's why he was put there in the first place. He doesn't believe any of this, because if he did, he would be doing it for the greater good. He's not doing any of this for the greater good. He's doing it for rich benefactors that give him money. That's what he does. I do think that he is so evil and so depraved that he knows the mindset of his wife. Now, that's a cultist.
That's a
And for him
cultist.
to keep her compliant, yeah, for him to keep her compliant, he feeds her this conspiracy theorist and all this other stuff. But that's just to keep her in line, because he knows she cuckoo. I think that's what he does when it comes to his wife. He knows she cuckoo, and he knows how to take advantage of that. And then he uses his influence to force the will of the people that's lying in his pocket. There's no way that Clarence Thomas believes any of this crap. Clarence Thomas reminds me of Mister from The Color Purple. Like, he is just so evil and depraved. He does not believe this. I'm telling you, this man don't believe any of this stuff. He don't. He just don't. He's just a nasty person. That's
Now
all.
now that said,
That's all.
Jenny,
And like you said, his wife is a wildebeest. That could be why he ain't happy.
well, now
You called her a wildebeest
I
first.
called her a wildebeest, and I could come up with a better name than that, I'm sure. But Jenny Thomas is a legitimate cultist. In the '80s, she was in a cult.
Yeah.
In the '80s, she got out of a cult, and
Mm-hmm.
she testified in Congress about being in this cult. She gets out of the cult, she
Mm-hmm.
marries this clown Clarence Thomas, and then she jumps back into a cult called MAGA. She is legitimately a
Yeah.
cult member, and she is off mentally, and hopefully she'll get her due ultimately when we see the superseding indictments. Now, somebody said in an email, or no, I saw it on TV, I think. Everybody's wondering, when are these other people going to get indicted in Congress, and Ginny Thomas and Roger Stone? And somebody said it will probably come. I think the plan is always been to not indict anybody in Congress or anybody else involved in the insurrection till after the election for whatever reason. They aren't time
Mm-hmm.
sensitive. It doesn't really change anything if we get them before the election. So they want to get that out of the way. That's just another hurdle to jump over. But once that happens, they can indict all these motherfuckers. And then you watch Washington, D.C. scurrying around like crazy motherfuckers when they start going after members of Congress.
Yeah, which, Merrick Garland, he just dropped the ball on all of this. I know that he was, I'm trying to think of who said it, James Carville, when we were going to the thing with the special prosecutor who was talking about Biden's mental stability. And he came out and he said, "You will never see a Democrat in that position or a special prosecutor. And everybody's like, well, we would assume that when a Democrat is in office, then the special counsels would be Democrats. And he said, no, they're either going to be a Republican or they're going to be independent. And the reason is when you put a Democrat in that position, Republicans say, oh my gosh, they're partisan. We cannot trust them. And what Democrats do is they say, okay, so to make everybody happy, we'll put a Republican there or we'll put somebody who's independent there. However, when Republicans are in charge, the first thing that they do is they put a Republican in because they don't give a care what Democrats think about that. And then he was saying that's part of the problem is because we allow for them to do that. Now, when
Exactly.
you have like Clarence Thomas and all these people that are up sitting in their positions, they know that and they prey off of that and then they use that. So you to stop them from this fake outrage of us being partisan and biased and putting our loyalists everywhere, they use the fact that, oh, Democrats are putting Democrats in these positions. So we try to appease them. And I think that's part of the problem is the appeasement that is being done to the people that's trying to tear our complete system down. You know what I mean? Like we really do need to step up and just say we're going to put the right person in the position, whether they're Democrat or not, or it's never going to work because you can
Right.
never appease people that's that extreme. And I think
So,
that is a big part of the problem.
so I'm going to break down what you just said, and I will concur with it. The Democrats, it's on them. They need to get a set of balls and actually do and not worry about what other people are going to say. We've seen what
Right.
happens when you pick the wrong person or you let the Republicans do what they're going to do. That's an unfair
Hmm.
situation. Republicans can put a Republican in there, but the Democrats feel, oh, we don't want to cause a problem. Fuck that. Get the right person
Yeah.
in there, get the attorney general doing his or her job, and then maybe we won't have to bow to the fucking Republicans anymore.
And I think that was part of it when Merrick Garland was appointed.
Right.
Was you at that point, we, or I don't want to say we, I think that Biden and the Democrats that be, they knew what Trump did and they knew that he would have to be held accountable. But if they would have put a Democrat in that position, it would have been like we're like what Trump says, we're targeting our political opponents. But as you can see, when we put someone in there who does not act, we're targeting our political opponents. So they're going to say whatever they're going to say regardless.
Right.
So why not just let them say what they're going to say since they're going to do that anyway and get the right person in there to do the job? Because all of this stuff that we're going through right now, we could have went through that for the first two, maybe 2.5 years of the Biden administration before Trump even talked about rerunning for office. Like that should have been on job day one. But we put someone in a position of power who wanted to appease both sides, and now we're stuck in a situation that we're stuck in. And that is different. That's definitely something that has to change. We can't keep trying to appease them. Oh, we don't want to seem biased. We don't want them to say this. We don't want them to say that. Who cares? They're going to say it anyway.
Well, what you just said involves common sense, and that is something we are lacking in our politics and in our judicial system. Common sense, decency, and
Yeah.
fairness. And this is why I've said once we get the Democrats in power in the House and the Senate and in the presidency, our fucking work's just begun. Because we got to straighten out a lot of shit
Hmm.
that the Democrats do or don't do. We've got to get people in line and understand what we need
Yeah.
to do in order to avoid a situation like this again. Because I don't know that this country could avoid another or survive another situation like this again.
Yeah, it's too much of a setup that allows minority rule. You know what I mean?
Right.
When it comes down to the filibuster, when it comes down to the way we run elections, like the electoral college, like all of our systems from 1900 is set up for minority rule. And I actually understand why they do that because if you go based off of population, of course, we have more populated states and cities than they do. So it's always going to be skewed that way. However, if you go based off of the Electoral College, you just take a handful of people in a handful of places that gets to run the whole thing. And when this handful of people run amok, then we are all screwed. You can see this playing out in the House right now.
Yeah.
You see just a handful of the maggots that's running the whole show when it comes to the Republicans. And then it's just on a larger scale when it comes to the system as a whole. You allow a handful of people to just run everything. And it can kind of be looked at like, okay, I get it. But when you have that handful of people that's so extreme and so deranged, I try not to use the word crazy, but when you have that, it's a recipe for disaster because now the rest of us, we have to suffer. When you have 70, 80% of the country saying, we don't want this, and then you have the minority saying, well, we don't care, we're going to make you guys, we're going to force it on you. You're going to have to do it. That's upside down. That's like hustling backwards. You know what I mean? Like, why
Yeah.
are you doing that? It
Yeah.
makes no sense. So they have to fix it in a way to where the rural red states, they have their voices heard and their concerns addressed, but the rest of the country doesn't have to suffer for them. And I used to think, and this was crazy because I was like talking to, she's not a Republican any longer, but I went to a community event last week and she was actually saying that because you on your podcast, you were saying we have to put people in we have to put people in place that enforces these policies, and then when the red states see that it's working for them, then they could know, oh, hey, we're benefiting off of Democrat policies, and that
Right.
can kind of change their minds. And she's saying that the reason that that won't work is because when we put policies in places to help these people in these red states, they will never see the benefits of it because they reject it. So it's kind of like when we try to give them money to feed their children for the summer months,
True.
they
True.
reject that. When we give them money for infrastructure, they use that to do other things with it. So
True.
even though we're helping them, it doesn't benefit their communities because they never use any of those resources for good. So it's kind of difficult for them to feel the effects of good policies when the people that they're electing in the first place don't implement these policies, or they give money back. We give them money to expand Medicare and Medicaid, and they say, nah, we good. We only need one hospital in this whole area. We want people to drive 2 hours to get help if there's an emergency, etc. So I can understand what she's like her coming from a red area. She's just like, it's not the policies because the policies never make it down to those people because the people that they elect, they'd be like, oh no, we can't let them feel the benefits of this. So
Right.
they intentionally make them suffer and then tell them it's the Democrats' fault. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like changing the way that they think, changing their mindset. So they will elect people in place who will take those funds and feed their children, expand their health insurance, and do all of these other things. But as far as just like giving them policies and letting them feel that, they don't, no matter what policies it is that we put in place. She was actually like a pretty good person to talk to as somebody coming from like a deep red state. Like
Well,
she understood it.
yeah,
And
but
it's so sad though when you think about that. How
there's all
sad is that?
there's always an end
Oh,
game to this. They do this at their own peril. They can't maintain this. And I'll give you an
mhm.
example. Donald Trump coming out and saying, if you voted for Nikki Haley, we don't want you. We don't want your money. We don't want your votes. Well, that's the thing that's going to take Donald
He's
Trump
an
down.
idiot.
That's why I'm saying is you can keep doing this, but at some point there's a breaking point. When you've got starving kids in Florida, when you've got teachers and doctors leaving
Hmm.
the state, when you've got athletes not coming to the state, there comes a breaking point. And people say, what the fuck is up? They can play this game for a while,
Yeah.
but Donald Trump exploded this whole situation. So it's now all in front of us. And
Mm.
it's not just, well, it's going to be a little rougher here, it's going to be a little rougher there. We're at that breaking point where people are truly going to suffer, and then they're going to have to make the decision. Do I go
Yeah.
with the people that want to help us or do I not? And if you choose to go with the people that don't want to help you, well, then you deserve what you fucking get.
That's true, but there's always innocent people that's
Yeah.
caught up in all of this. You know what I mean? Like when you're an adult and you're in a red state and you're a hardcore Republican and you see and you hear that there's money being allotted so your children can have food for the summer, and that money is being turned away and they're telling you poor kids are obese or whatever the
Yeah, yeah.
nonsense is that they say, and you continue to vote for that person, yeah, that's on you. That's what you get. But in the meantime, there's starving children there. You know what I mean? There's schools that need new books. Like, how old do your books have to be? Like, you know what I mean? It's just so it's so horrible because there's people that's innocent people that's getting caught up. Or if you have somebody who's like a blue dot in a red area, they don't believe in any of this crap, but because of where they live, they have to suffer for that. So
But
it's
the
kind
only,
of like you have to kind of change the minds of these people that's living there. But how do you do that when it's so ingrained in them? Like
yeah.
the woman that's here with her daughter, like it is so ingrained in her that she believes this nonsense, and it's I don't know
Well,
how you change those people's minds. I don't
well,
know. It's
they
so
have to,
sad.
they
Oh,
have to
that's
be,
so sad.
they have to be able to recognize the problem. They
Mm,
have to create a grassroots effort and fucking change the place. I mean, if I'm driving down the
mhm,
road with an empty tank of gas and I go by a gas station, I can either get gas or keep going. But when I keep going, when my
mm.
car stops, I've got one option to walk. And then the next time I make sure I stop and get gas. I mean, at some point it's all on us. We've got to make the decision. If the people of Florida in general or any other state decide, well, we want to go with the Republicans, well, then you go with the Republicans. Fuck around and find out. You will pay the price ultimately. The question is, how much of a price do you have to pay before you get some fucking common sense?
Yeah, I don't it's so I just I don't get it, and it's probably because I don't haven't been exposed to that. And then I told you, like, last time I dated a guy from Memphis, Tennessee, and when I went there, they had those dead areas where, like, your cell phones wouldn't work. That was wild. But also, when we went to go get the rental car, I was trying to get, like, the basic insurance, and he's like, "Oh, no, you need, like, the full package, where you could pretty much drive this car into a wall and walk away from it, and you don't owe anything." And I understood it because when I was driving, like, I've never seen holes in the street so big. Like there's like cracks everywhere. There's big old potholes in there. You drive past and all you hear is clunk, clunk, clunk. And I'm like, why is the street so tore up like this? And he was like, you think they fix streets here? Like it was like I'm used to the hood, but not that kind of hood. Like I can at
Uh,
least walk down the street and don't have to worry about tripping and falling because part of the concrete is lifted or there's I mean, it was just insane. I don't even know how people drive on the streets out there with the potholes and stuff everywhere. But it's just insane that they allow for the people that they elect to get away with this and at the same time blame Democrats for it. But I
yeah.
guess when people are in office, they can say, the Democrats don't do anything for us. You see how tore up our streets are. Instead of saying, well, you've been in office for 10 years and you haven't fixed these streets yet. Let's try to roll with somebody else. They don't say that.
I
They
know.
just say, yep, the Democrats are bad. You've been in office for 10 years. You haven't done anything, but it's not your problem. It's not your fault. It's their fault. So it's kind of like this victimhood that's been ingrained in them. And
Well,
they're
it's
literally trained to be victims. And it's always somebody else's fault. And the people that know better, they prey off of that mentality. Not
right.
only do they prey off of it, but they reinforce it by telling them lies.
Well,
It's a
eventually,
vicious cycle that goes on with these people.
eventually they have to make the right decision or not make the right decision. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it except try to do the best we can in our
Mm,
own situations. Well, old soul, we're going to wrap up
yeah.
the Rational Boomer podcast. We went long as we usually do, but it's all valuable information and
Sorry,
it's a
guys.
no, 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 no. Don't be sorry. We do whatever the fuck we want here. They can pause the thing and come back later if they want to. But thank you for coming in again, old soul. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thanks. It's always fun. It always go by quick too.
It does go by quickly. Um, for those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.